before we start the podcast, hey, where's the gameplay at? Don't worry, we are getting new staff and new editors onboarded right now to deliver to you regularly scheduled gameplay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Playing with Power podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things CEDH, EDH, and Magic the Gathering. I am your host, Ryan.
And I am your co-host, DefCat.
And this is where DefCat talks about our topic today.
The topic today is one that many times before it's been seen as a mystery, but here we are to clarify that there is a big difference between CEDH and TEDH.
Yes, there is. But before we are going to be going into that, we wanted to do a quick little 5-10 minute, or what will end up being 45-minute recap of our recent attendance of MagicCon Vegas 2025. So this was an event that we had 5 Playing with Power members attend, and it is one of 3 of the MagicCon events that were happening this year. We went to Chicago earlier. It was Zeb and myself. And this time for Vegas, it was myself, DefCat, Jay, and Zeb, and Alex, and Mike. So there was a bigger crew of Playing with Power represented there. And we just wanted to talk about our experiences with it and say thank you to anybody who was there, played games with us, recorded with us, or just came up and said, hey.
Yeah. And if the, 110 degree heat didn't cook you, you got to get inside to this wonderfully ventilated space. It was very comfortable. Tons of room, giant 2-floor massive convention center with a built-in convenience store and food court was also incredible. The food court prices weren't terrible, but the stalls were awful. Those were like $10 hot dogs, which me and you shared plenty of.
Unfortunately, yes.
Highlight of the con, though, absolutely, as it is every convention for me, was the Learn to Play CEDH event. It was so much fun to see a new player come up and ask questions about the format, and how every time I explain it, I have to say something different.
Yep. I think that was probably one of the highlights for me as well. We did a number of things while we were there as Playing with Power as a group. One of them, like you said, was to Learn to Play. The other one was we recorded games at the Dragon Shield booth from like 11 to 2 on Saturday. And then we did a creator meet and greet. So if anybody was there during any of those times, just wanted to give a personal thank you for coming out and saying hello to us. It means a lot. And we're so happy that we can be part of this great community. But I absolutely agree with you when I would say probably the highlight of the whole weekend was that Learn to Play section.
Yeah, getting to jam games, getting to talk about what defines CEDH or what doesn't, as well as just watching someone get it halfway through and they see a stack war. We had a game go haywire with counters and traps and use sandbagging interaction on me while I was attempting to fly off the rails with
twice.
Twice.
Yeah, I did it
twice. And then throughout the weekend, when it wasn't time to jam an event, we saw so many of our friends. Is there anyone in particular you saw that you were excited to see?
No, honestly, other than the Playing with Power crew, because we're not all of us live together. We're not all in the same, city, let alone state. Yes. we are spread out all over the country, and the idea that I get to actually see and hug my teammates in person is a really big one for me personally. I absolutely love actually hanging out with these people that I talk with on a daily basis. So that was a really big one for me. It's what I love about these conventions.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it feels like this nice little temporal box. I got to see one of my besties, Sydney, who's known as Tappy Toe Claws, and then getting to jam games with Hire in person was such a huge highlight for me. I love being able to see both those people. They're wonderful. But also the fact that so many people within the community are so respectful of the name Playing with Power. So many others want to play games with us and get to see us. Got to see, obviously, Tyler from Play to Win, get some dinners with them. Wonderful, wonderful time. And I just can't recommend MagicCon more. The only thing that happened at that MagicCon that I'd love to highlight is the mass incarceration of steel product. Everyone took anything that they earned from an event, from their ticket, and they didn't rip it open. They sold it straight to a vendor for cash.
That was, now that you mentioned that, you're absolutely right. I was thinking about all of the different pulls that I've seen people pull from their collector boosters of Final Fantasy and different things. They say, "Oh wow, I can't believe I pulled this." I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And then the next sentence was always, "Yeah, I sold it to a vendor immediately," or "I sold my collector booster packs to a vendor. Like
Yes.
no one was holding product. I didn't see
Yep.
anyone buying
Yep.
product. I
No.
saw people cracking and immediately flipping. And I don't know if I want to go too much into detail of what exactly that means, but it does mean something.
Whole new podcast on that one.
Yeah, we'll put that in the
Whole
backlog.
new podcast
We'll put it in
on
the
that.
backlog. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. Now that you mentioned that, like, I
Yep.
didn't see a soul that said, "Oh, I was looking for this card." I'm so glad.
Yes.
I bought two, but that's just because I already have decks for them. I bought
Yeah.
Gilgamesh, which was Godo Bandit Warlord, and I bought forget its name at the moment, but it's Perforos, God of the Forge, and those are two commander decks that I currently own, and so of course I get every treatment of them whenever they come out because I've had them and I love them. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
Every
really
comment I
didn't
got
hear
on
about. Yeah, I didn't hear
uh-huh.
about many others. Yeah.
No, yeah. Every comment on my channel for the pack openings we always do was, why would you open this? You could have immediately made $60 selling this to any vendor sealed. And I was like, yeah, well, it's not the point of Magic for me, I'll be honest.
And not to mention that there's times when you're pulling and ripping nothing, but it wasn't hard to at least break even because that's the inflated price of the cards equaled the inflated price of the packs. Like
Absolutely.
I got two collector booster packs, opened them. One of them I was upside down on to a shock to absolutely nobody listening. And then the other one was like, I pulled an $80 surge foil. It wasn't even that great of a card, but it was just the fact that it was a surge foil was immediately $80. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll try and trade this for other stuff. Once again, I didn't hold it. I wanted to get rid of it immediately.
You had to, yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the main part and the main topic of this podcast today. And this was an important conversation that we wanted to have because we've been seeing a lot of rumblings online just as CDH players over the years, but I feel like lately it's starting to come to more of a head. And that might not be the case, but it might be just how I feel. But there's a sentiment that's growing online that is negative towards CDH. And basically what we're observing, or at least I can vouch for myself that I'm observing, is that a lot of people are saying, I don't like CDH because of XYZ, or I'll never play CDH because of XYZ. And those XYZ reasons are things that are normally happening only in a tournament setting. And what we feel is going on here is that there are people that are confused about what the difference is between CEDH and what we would like to call TEDH, or tournament EDH. And so today's topic is we really want to dig into these terms in specifics, talk about some of the things we've been seeing online, and really help dig into what the differences are between them, what the similarities are between them, and help dispel a couple of myths that have been perpetuated through this community, either through bad actors or people who just didn't know any different, and help try to quell and better understand what's kind of going on right now, and hope that we can create a better understanding of what's going on as a whole for this format.
Not only that, just to dispel the myth for anyone that there is a massive difference between TDH and CDH, and then define both those two things. Because Playing with Power started before tournaments, if that wasn't very clear. Tournaments, in my mind, are still a new thing. I played CDH much farther before anything as concrete as Top Deck was made, in the fact. Once that emerged and we saw regularly attended ones, whether or not, we had any at all. So going into what makes this topic important is defining what TDH is, defining what CDH is, acknowledging the fact that there is a difference between those things, and how CDH is catching the strays from TDH.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I think our best thing to start off here is to basically define what TEDH is. And I'm going to be very spit at the mic specific when I do these things, because
it's like rogue light versus rogue light.
Yeah, light. So I'm going to be very specific. So I'm glad I got a pop filter here, so I hope it gets most of it out. But what do we mean when we talk about tournament EDH or TEDH? What is it that we mean? What is your definition of this?
One, is there something that I get if I win? And is there someone here to enforce whether or not I play within comp REL rules while I play for said prize? And was this a location and time that was known pre the event? Because it can't just be F&M. It needs to be an event center and or location holding said event with a prize and a guaranteed TO and judges there. If I do not have those things, this is effectively CEDH for me now. If I am with my friends and someone puts $50 on the table, it's just still CEDH, but I need all that rest of it to be an actual TEDH setting.
Gosh, I don't think I could have defined it any better, honestly. Like structured, organized, set with a goal in mind. Other players are participating and are seeking out to do that. It is the definition of a tournament. So
Yes.
let's pretend for a second that we just didn't put the EDH on the end of it. Tournament is what we're
No.
talking about here. And it just so happens that the format of this Magic
Yes.
tournament is Commander. I didn't say CDH. I said Commander. It is a Commander tournament. That's what TEDH is.
Yes. And on top of all that, like I said, we didn't have to mention what the format was. If you've ever, played really before 2019 and you were into any kind of serious scene, you knew the difference between going to a regional and going to F&M. This isn't just F&M. This is something where a date, location, prize was posted online and advertised. I wouldn't even call it TDH if there was an advertisement going into it either, because that means you're probably not pulling in the most competitive reigns anyway. And so when we're talking about TDH, we're talking about a very agreed upon setting as well. This is something where everyone's going into it with prior knowledge of what's expected to get from it, but also knowing that when I come, there are stipulations and rules that I have agreed to abide by entering this, because I have purchased a ticket in order to attend.
And there's caps and there's structures and things along those lines that really, people mark off their calendars. They'll travel, they'll do things like that. And I really appreciate how you keep saying that this is an F&M, because there are people out there who say, well, wait a minute, F&M's a tournament, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can get prizes at this. I think F&M meets your definition of tournament. And the answer is actually a little bit more nuanced, but the answer is no, that's not actually true. Because if you dig into the rules, and I'm not going to speak for every LGS here, so if you have that gotcha or whatever, that's not what we're trying to achieve here. You're not going to snipe me with the one person who decides to do things a little differently. But overall, and a general expectation is that F&Ms are supposed to be your introduction into a competitive scene, and they structure that intentionally. So a quick example of that is there is a thing called REL, rules enforcement level. There's a couple of different levels of these or adherences to these RELs. And we're not going to get into judge talks and stuff like that today. But if you want to distill it into two major types for the sake of this conversation, we have regular REL, rules enforcement level, or we have competitive REL. Regular REL is what you see at an F&M or maybe a pre-release. This is like friendly enforcement. Judge calls, a lot of times they can be used to be enforced, but a lot of times they're educational. Hey, how does this card work? Let's call a judge. That's usually when people call a judge, at an
in most F&Ms, the judge that's there is someone on staff that happened to at some point have, been able to get a judge status. They may not even have it currently.
Yeah, there's no official structure. Sometimes it's just what do they call those? Rules advisors. I'm not sure if those are still a thing, but they're not even actually an officially even level 1 judge at these. But we're talking about a casual introduction into a competitive scene. And then we have what's called a comp REL, like a competitive REL. RCQs, these tournaments we're talking about, penalties for missed triggers, illegal plays, slow plays, these types of things are actually enforced at these different types of levels. And that's what we're talking about at the distinction.
I like that last sentence though. What was that? What about missed triggers? What was that?
Yeah. So these types of things are what you expect at a tournament setting. And then going full circle, these are what you expect at a tournament commander setting.
Yes. Yeah. And right now, maybe even what we've already talked about most often isn't enforced at TDH like it should be. And that's definitely a part of what we're going to get into today. But sticking on definition of TDH now, I would like to hang it back to you. How would you define CEDH? EDH?
So CEDH is what has been around for many, many years now. What it is essentially a shortcutted rule zero conversation. And CEDH stands for competitive EDH. I wish we didn't have that nomenclature. Like I wish that competitive wasn't the word that we eventually, it's been stuck
Yeah.
and we can't call it anything else at this point.
Yeah.
Like I hate the
Bracket
word
5?
competitive. Exactly. Maybe I'll start using bracket 5 and watch all of our numbers tank because no one looks for bracket 5.
Hey guys,
But
bracket 5 gameplay over here at Playing with Power. Look at that.
yeah, oh, we get dozens of views this last game, dozens.
Yeah.
But essentially what competitive EDH is, it is bracket 5 gameplay. It is gameplay that has no restrictions, no limits, play to the best of your ability, take the commander as far as it can go, and play with a meta in mind, understanding certain expectations of cards, understanding certain, things are to be expected at a CEDH table. That's it. That's the only, that's what it is. And that's where it stops for me anyway. Like I don't go beyond that because CEDH, and you'll hear me chime this for the last however long I've been saying it. CEDH is EDH. It's just the far end of it. That's all it is.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that we're just defining it as what it is, just like it is in the bracket system. It's a shortcut on a rule zero conversation about the fact that we are currently playing, and this is where maybe the current bracket 5 definition of CEDH could be changed and why TEDH may want to be this kind of sixth thing we're talking about. It's a shortcut on the rule zero conversation, and it's with the understanding you're going into a meta. But does there being a meta define it being tournament? No, it does not at all. Just because there's a meta of what's best does not mean it has to be at a tournament. We understand that if you ask for a pickup game of CEDH, I'm going to say there's like an 80% likelihood you're going to see the name Thrasios or Rograk anywhere in that pot. Thrasios, Rograk, Tymna, it's got to be at least 80% of CEDH games.
Now, we've defined both of these. At any given point in time, did we say that CEDH was casual REL rules, any sort of structure, any sort of stakes, any sort of anything? Now that we have these definitions on proverbial paper, do you see how far away these two things are with the separation of just one letter? CEDH versus TEDH. We're talking tournament commander versus bracket 5 gameplay is what we're talking about here. They're not actually related at all. And that's where, I'm sorry, that was the wrong way to say it. It's not that they're not related. These things are not the same thing. CEDH is played in TEDH. And that's where our confusion a lot of time lies, especially when it comes to outside opinions or thoughts about it or critiques on it. Whenever somebody is doing a critique of something, a lot of times in a TEDH context, they're using the blanket term CEDH because CEDH is always what's played at TEDH.
Yes. And you put it best in our pre-conversation before this podcast came on, Ryan. You said a square is a rectangle. That doesn't mean a rectangle is always a square. The same thing goes for these things. CEDH is always TEDH, but TEDH is not always CEDH.
That's
and
right.
That's a really important part of this conversation because I had a personal experience where this all clicked for me and what made this conversation start for me years ago. We did F&M CEDH night. We were very excited. I helped foster that at my LGS. It was a part of why I wanted to do this for a living. And then one night, as I'm playing my Yisan deck, and I realized if I tutored on this verse counter, it would win me the game, I was quiet. I was good at my politics. I subverted any attraction to me. And then when I went for the win, someone went, "Hey, I asked you, can you win with what's on your board?" And I said, "Well, yeah, with what's on the board, there's not, but I was able to get something from my deck." And they went, "Man, why do you play so hard?" And I went, what are you talking about? We're a prize and we're playing CEDH. Why wouldn't I play like that? And quickly, no one wanted to play with me because of my politicking. And I went, oh man, I need to do differently at my F&M CEDH night than what I do at a tournament. And thus born within me was this separation between going to the CCS 10K in Georgia and what I did at my F&M CEDH, and those effectively became two different places. I acted differently. I politicked differently.
That's right. How you're going to act in a tournament setting isn't automatically how you're going to act in a casual setting. One of the distinctions I really like to draw, or I'm sorry, parallels I really like to draw when I talk about these two distinctly different things is not even that far away of an allegory to what we do right now. Think of it like the Pro Tour or a 1v in a 1v1 format. Kitchen Table and the Pro Tour are still playing the same game, but they're not playing the same game, I say in air quotes, They're
Yeah.
playing two different things. They're playing the same game of Magic the Gathering, but they're playing a different sort of game, even though something like the legalization of the format or like the cards in the format might be the same. Oh, I have a casual modern deck and I'm playing it at my kitchen table. And so happened at the Pro Tour, the latest modern event or whatever. Do you see a situation like we're seeing in CDH versus TDH, where if somebody in a Pro Tour did something, are you blaming all the kitchen table modern players for the sins of this person at the Pro Tour? The answer is no. That's a Pro Tour issue. That's that player issue. That's that issue, not a format as a whole issue. You don't blame modern for
Yeah.
what happened at the Pro Tour, but for some reason,
preach on that.
everyone is blaming CEDH for the problems at Commander tournaments. And that gets into the crux of what our issue is today.
Yeah. We are catching massive strays from huge events having major issues. And that's not to say that we throw any sort of shade at the incredible people that are attempting to make TEDH happen. These TOs and these judges are going way out of their way at little benefit to them to provide us a wonderful comp REL experience. I am very in favor of that. I'm very in favor of TEDH. It's just that we wanted to find that they're different. And instead of having CEDH constantly take the flack from it, that we acknowledge that that's somewhere else.
Exactly. These are not mutually exclusive things like we've experienced in the past between casual and CDH. CDH is still Commander, it's just played at a different level. That doesn't mean they're separate formats.
Yeah.
TDH is another way to enjoy yourself. The spirit of competition, the idea of knowing rules and knowing your deck and being able to prove that in a setting with stakes and really being able to enjoy that type of atmosphere and that type of event. And then you sit down at the end of day one on a tournament and you play CEDH at the tables at the lobby con till 3 a.m. having a great time, and the experiences are completely different, even though you played the exact same deck that you're playing in the tournament.
Yes. And I got a wonderful experience at Vegas where I had someone sit down and said, would you all mind doing a practice TEDH game? We had actually defined that in a Rule Zero. No one has ever said that to me before, and it was wonderful. I'll show this picture on screen. This is a 64 spell stack war where we had properly layered triggers for Ristics and Mystics and untaps, and everyone was politicking to their hardest extent, making deals. Everything was cut and dry. We were using the no yapping rules. It was so cleanly played, and everyone there was completely on the same page. Versus 8 White Claws in with the play to win guys at this LobbyCon image that was CDH, where we were jamming. I was irresponsible with my plays. I wasn't over politicking. We're still playing our best. I'm not saying you can't play CDH and play your best. That is not at all the argument we're making. You can play CDH just as hard, and especially politicking. Politicking is still a part of CDH. But what we are not including within CDH is the type of politicking you, the viewer, have heard about in TDH that has made all this kerfuffle. We're specifically talking about all the points that have been making it in the news.
Yep. And a quick aside, we're not saying that TDH is fun exclusive.
No.
Like you can have fun at TDH. We're not saying that. CDH and TDH, they have fun. And no one here who says they love tournament EDH or tournament commander, we are not trying to say that you're not there to have a good time, because we know you are, because we do it too. Yeah. But what we are saying is, like you said, we're needing to finally draw this distinction that, as unfortunately CDH is catching a lot of this flack from.
Yeah. Because we get to do everything we do at a CDH table at the tournament EDH table. But due to the fact that I'm playing CDH, there are no comp REL rules. I am not being enforced, and the people at my table are not being incentivized by a prize. And for, lack of better terms, it's normally a pickup game. This isn't something where it's extremely organized. Our tensions are lower. Our ability to explain something on the stack instead of hard cut people and go, well, since you didn't understand it, I'm not going to explain it to you and try to win that way. That's just normally not how CDH ends up being played. Not that you can't. You're able to do all of that, but you can't do that at a tournament. You can't flub rules at a tournament. You can't be lackadaisical. We can't just say it doesn't matter. And that's the distinction we're trying to make. We're not trying to limit your ability of what happens at a CDH table. We're just explaining you can't do some of the things you do at a CDH table at a TDH table.
You can try.
There's
nothing stopping you. You can try, but it doesn't usually work.
A wonderful segue. You can try to do it at TDH tables, and many of you have. And that's something we take issue with, which is the fact at TDH tables, there have been things that have been either said, that have been instigated, and or actions taken that should be enforced more heavily by TOs and judges. And
yes,
no longer should we let people sit down at a TDH table and do anything outside of comp REL rules.
This is going to be a tough section. Because we're going to start to probably, I'm just going to say it. We're going to need the parts of this community to start stepping up. Because I think that CEDH has paid for enough of the sins for long enough. We paid for the sins of pub stompers for years, and now we're paying for the sins of TDH bad actors and we're tired of it. We're tired. CEDH players are tired of always being, the thing to kick whenever something goes left of center. And it's time that people started stepping up in this community and helping to fix these issues and helping to resolve these in proper ways.
Yeah. And before we even get to share our opinion, let you know, one, me and Ryan are very invested in TDH, both of us. If you want to look at it if you look at major events, over 100 people, I'm still the rank one on one of the commanders. I pour blood, sweat, and tears into performing at a TDH level. I really care about the format. Ryan ran tournaments for a long time.
We still do. Sign up to Mox Masters.
Hey,
we still have it. Yeah.
And so there is in no way, shape, or form any adherence to the fact that for some reason either of us would have something negative to say at a TDH because you don't like it.
Yes.
We're, again, like Ryan said, just trying to keep CEDH and TEDH. We're tired of the crossover.
That's right. This is not a different format. These are just two separate entities that happen to have a crossover, is really what it boils down to.
Yes.
And really what we want to start with is, number one, we need to acknowledge these distinctions. Right now, too often, people will get onto a social media and talk about the latest problems in CEDH, hashtag CEDH this, and CEDH has a problem that. And they know that there's a bigger audience of CEDH versus having to explain what TEDH is. So it's easier just to put it into that, just lump them all together, get the viewership that you need to for the monetization you need to, or the attention or the reactions that you need to. And that's exactly how you're going to play that game. And all it's doing is hurting. It's hurting the community when you do this stuff.
Yeah. For years, we had a horrible time explaining the difference between pub topping and CEDH, but now we're there. If you go into the CEDH subreddit, for example, and ever post, my group plays these good decks, I'm tired of it, show me how to CEDH, every comment will tell you we are absolutely not about that. It is very defined nowadays, the fact that CEDH is not even close to that. But for a very long time, there was a very difficult to have conversation about CEDH versus pub stomping. Now we're in the new era where CEDH versus TEDH is our new hard thing to explain, and I don't think that'll stay that way. I think as long as we have the talks we're having now, and with what we're going to charge you as the viewer with to go out and proceed with, that won't be a hard conversation.
Exactly. So there's a couple of different things that we can do as a community to help fix these issues. So the first, everyone's going to be accountable here. So we're going to start with a couple and we're going to work our way through everyone, just so everyone knows no one's off the table here.
Yes.
The first one I'm going to say is to our circle, the content creators. Content creators, we need you to be to be more judicious in your language when you talk about these things. I get it. Hot topics, viral moments, things like that, because you need to get that next video out. We know we're there. But when you have a certain degree of an audience that will listen to every word you say and you're not clear on your language, you're going to create more problems than you're going to solve, or more than what that video was going to make you for that week or that tweet or that whatever that might be. Content creators, we need you to start making distinctions a little bit better. Are we guilty of that from time to time? I'm sure if you look back through our backlog, you'll find something, because that's just the nature of it. We're going to make sure that we are always going to be distinct from now on. We were always pretty distinct, but we are going to make double sure that there is never a mention of anything bad ever happening in a TEDH setting without the nomenclature, specifically TEDH, and a disclaimer of the separation between the two before we discuss it. We are calling on you content creators to do the exact same thing. If you want to provide an argument as to why you shouldn't do that, I would really love to hear it, because there is a lot of problems around not getting this language very precise. So that is our first audience member that we would really like for you guys to step up, like we are going to do. We're going to put our money where our mouth is and make sure that everything discussed in a TEDH setting is going to be labeled as TEDH.
Absolutely. And for content creators, if you listen to this, we want to hear your response. This isn't one-way channel. And not only that, we like being wrong. We like learning. That's never a problem, because
exactly,
the Playing with Power branding has been one of the largest pushes for CEDH ever. The advocacy here has always been to expand, make more accessible, and also make more inclusive this format. And right now, TEDH, in a lot of ways, the strays we're catching from it makes it feel very exclusive. Like, if you aren't this extremely large personality and the ability to push down others in negotiation that you could never survive in a tournament, like, oh my gosh. And then somehow now it's not just that, they're saying you can't survive in CDH without that, which is, oh goodness, absolutely not. And that's why we want to define these things.
Yep. So the next one that we are going to talk about is the people that run these these commander tournaments. These are the judges and the TOs. This is not F&M. I need you all to make sure it's not being run like an F&M, because what's happening when you're having these casual type approaches to this is we're getting situations like we are hearing. I don't want to get into specifics. I don't want to get into names, but for those of you who are listening to this at the time of publication, probably have a good idea of what I'm talking about. Angle shooting, long games, and things, and things along those lines that are making CDH sound awful, that were honestly something that could have easily been rectified by proper and due diligence and attention from the judges and TOs. Yes, I'm calling you all out right now. This is not to say you're all bad. This is not to say that you're terrible and you shouldn't do this and stuff like that. We're just asking that we are putting the onus on ourselves to do better, but we're also putting the onus on the rest of the community as well to do better. These types of things, talking about bullying, talking about harassment, talking about, these things that are making people want to quit just after they quit the format altogether because they left the tournament because a judge couldn't be bothered to enforce a comp REL unsportsmanlike conduct infraction or couldn't enforce slow play, is unacceptable. This isn't F&M. This isn't casual commander night. You need to be able to enforce these things. And that's the part where we're asking you all to do, to really step up and start to help this format and this overall game in a way that's going to be conducive going forward.
Yeah. And so wherever these words are clipped and whoever this is sent to, this is your advocacy. This is our backing we're giving you, that you can come up to these tables and do it. We are pushing you in a way that has force behind it, not in a way that is if you don't, we'll be frustrated.
Yeah.
This is, in all sense of the word, a freedom. You have everyone's acceptance to do this. You will not get backlash for telling someone we find the way you're speaking to other players to be outside of comp REL. No one in this community will get upset if that goes a little too far, because right now it's way too far in the other way.
That's right. And once again, my words seem strong, but please understand, I'm not wagging my finger at you like you're the problem. This is a Like you said, this is
You're
a
the
moment to
solution.
say, yeah, this is a solution. This is to say, hey, that game has gone 30 minutes over time. Let's have all the judges hover around them.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you didn't make the play, and I've said you 3 times. Unsportsmanlike conduct. You're disqualified from this round. Do
Yeah.
that. Do those things. Do what you have the power to do, and you'll find how quickly those things will stop happening.
They will solve themselves.
Very quickly, when somebody gets disqualified from a round, gets a match loss, when somebody gets disqualified from a tournament before it is over because of these things, you will find how quickly they will leave your tournament scene.
Yep. Yep. And for the rest of that tournament, you can be rest assured no one is going to get close to repeating the mistake of someone who left. Probably for tournaments to come, especially if they're coming back to your tournaments. I always go to the CCS 10Ks in Georgia. They're my favorite place, and they always have been because the judges there are awesome. It's been different tournament organizers. I'm not specifically heightening one person. I've just been lucky enough that anytime a tournament's been organized there, I've been able to call judges. I have had people ejected on behalf of those calls, and I've been very thankful at tournament staff at those locations that have been so diligent and have protected the comp REL rule integrity.
Now, all you judges and TOs that are furiously typing in our comments right now, I implore you to understand that we are tournament organizers too. We know what it's like. We ran an invitational. We've run monthly tournaments for years. We're running weekly tournaments now with monthly tournaments. We are not some outsiders looking in, telling you how to do your job. We know what it's like. And we know that nothing is black and white, but certain things have started to come to a head that are just inexcusable that we as tournament organizers and judges have the power to act on. And all we are saying is now it is starting to become the time where we do need to actually exercise those powers.
Yes. And please exercise them. You are our solution, and you are the letter in the law. And absolutely, although we will never say that you are the issue, because you're not.
No,
That would be quite literally victim blaming. It would be,
yeah.
At that point, you do not encourage people to act this way at all. You have every reason to stop them, though. And we are asking you because we need you.
Exactly. And then the final group of people that we want to touch on as a way to help fix this issue is the players, the community. Hey, you all have power too. You're not at the mercy of the judges and the TOs. You have an amount of power that you can also exercise. If you are at a tournament and you find you are being bullied, if you feel that you're being harassed, or you feel you're being pressured into doing something you don't want to do, the word judge and raising your hand will fix every problem that you have in that scenario. Because all you have to do is raise your hand, call judge, and say unsportsmanlike conduct. Be like, I have a case for unsportsmanlike conduct right now.
Yep.
And that person who's been doing this is going to somehow have to defend themselves from bullying you, and they're not going to be able to do it. And they're going to get an unsportsmanlike conduct call. I have to double check the MTA, but basically the modified tournament rules for multiplayer. There are real penalties for these types of things.
Yeah.
Slow play is another. So you have slow play. Somebody politics, the rest of the table, politics, they've all said their piece. Somebody starts politicking again. That's slow play.
Yes.
Judge, I'm calling slow play on player one here. The community has the ability to also work with the judges and the TOs to help make this all a much smoother experience.
Yeah.
A judge and a TO has no idea what is going on at all 32 to 64 tables of 4 players each at a tournament. The only way they can find out is if you let them know. So the onus isn't on the judges, it's on all of us.
And never let anyone make you feel bad about if you do get a false flag call. If you do end up raising your hand to something that makes you feel bullied and the judge ends up going, which would be a little surprising, no, that's just politicking. It's okay. The game can continue. No infraction. That's okay. There is no problem with that happening ever. If anything, maybe you and that player now get on the same page and you recognize they weren't trying to bully you. And that is completely fine. Don't let anyone bully you out of calling a judge. That is always within your power. And also, you know what is inside Comp REL rules about bullying? volume level and intensity. Stop letting people talk over you. There is a no yapping rule for a reason. If you are in your turn and someone makes you feel rushed, frustrated, or with the inability to speak, you can, one, enforce the no yapping rule in that pod. And if you do not have the social capital within that moment to do that, and you are being pushed back even more, that is the easiest call you can ever make. And it is one that I have made. Someone who is way too loud and talks too much, I have called that. And it was just over volume level and intensity. It had nothing to do with the speech pattern we were accruing. There was no cursing. There was no frustrated language, but the person was becoming big. They were overreaching the table, pointing at things, yelling. What they had to say was fine, but I was not okay with the fact that I noticed that the players at the table were becoming intimidated by this person. I was not okay with that. It was the quickest judge call. On top of that, I was able to then walk to the side with this judge and explain this. You're going to get your own space to speak with them. You're not going to be intimidated in front of this person that's making you feel this way. It's very easy to go and have this conversation aside.
So that's a really good point to bring up. What was the result of you doing that?
The result, in first, was an infraction. It was saying, hey, if this is a repeated issue, we will come back and resolve it at a much severe level. Then, once this was resolved and the player returned, we got to the point where what the argument was originally over happened. And I was able to play the card that I wanted to, and they were very angry and started to call me a liar. That once things like that were thrown around and name calling and things, I was absolutely in the position where I stated it plainly. I'm being bullied. And that person was then removed from that round. This happened at a large tournament. I do not want to witch hunt. I think that's stupid, but this was at something with over 100 players. This is something you can do at any level of tournament as long as there is TOs available.
How interesting. How many of you heard about that? Obviously, this isn't a live studio audience. That's a rhetorical question. But it's crickets out there. Tough audience.
I like Blue's growing up. That fit. I was in. I was locked in when I heard that.
Little Dora the Explorer. That's right.
Yeah.
But how many of you heard about that? I'd venture to say not many of you. Maybe people who have spoken to you directly have heard about it.
And I looked later to look at whether or not this would be a topic on the subreddit or within Twitter. And there was exactly 2 comments, and they were made on my personal pages.
Yeah. So if you'll notice, when these things are dealt with in a respectable and appropriate manner, that these things don't conflate into a situation that will create a bad scene or a bad type of image for CEDH as a way to play. And if anything, they can then be relegated to, oh, we have a tournament mishap, or we have something that's going on at a tournament. And having these distinctions and enabling this community, everyone, like we've covered everyone now, to be able to help with this language and help with these types of problems is going to go so far into helping quell these problems, because at the end of the day, we want people to play. That's the whole point here. We love this format. We want to do this. And having this distinction here is really going to help us get more players in here. We're not scaring people away. I think overall, we can all do this if we all band together to do it.
Absolutely. So on a player level, be empowered, know what kind of calls you can make, as well as at the table, advocate for those that you feel are being bullied, even if it's in your best interest in the game or the win, or make sure and remain that comp REL is the most important part of a tournament.
And we want to touch on one last thing before we start to close up, and that is, what about the people who don't listen to you? What about the people who are going to do it anyway? How are we going to fix that in CEDH? What is CEDH going to do to fix this? What is TEDH going to do to fix this? And to that, we say the following. Toxicity and toxic players are not a format issue. Yes. They are a people issue. Toxic players exist in all areas of all hobbies, interests, games, whatever it is. This is not a CEDH issue. This is a people issue. And you are not going to be able to change rules. You're not going to be able to alter formats. You're not going to be able to do anything to stop a toxic player from being toxic. The only thing you can do is get them in a position that they are not enabled to do such a thing. Like we had already talked about, if you are playing in a pod with them, Make sure that you are understanding what comp REL rights that you have. If you're a judge or TO, be strict with these things. Follow through on these things. Don't give them third, fourth, fifth, 10th chances in a tournament. Make sure that this type of toxicity is not given a place to grow, because it's a virus. It is a virus that can destroy something like we are seeing happening now. I'm not saying it's being destroyed, but we are seeing this virus spread. And
Yeah.
unless we do something about it, we're going to have problems.
It's done damage. We are experiencing damage as a result of toxicity being displayed within tournaments, and it's happening to CEDH now. That damage is leaked over. And there was a time, if any of you have ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, where that ran rampant right before the pandemic. And there was a large issue with those people pushing others out of these turn zero win format issues with Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. And it did hurt tournament attendance. That is a real thing. But we're not even talking about hurting tournament attendance right now. We're just scared for CEDH being approachable at all. But if there's one thing that Magic the Gathering is good at, it's being inclusive. We beat the 30-year-old white man allegations a long time ago. If you go to a MagicCon, you will not see the level we did 5 years ago. The diversity is insane. And so I have a direct statistic from Vegas I'd love to share. In 2019, the last major event held before the pandemic saw an 8% inclusion of women attendees. As of MagicCon Vegas, we had 33%. If that is not indicative of the change that Magic has had and the availability, then I do not know what is. That is the most solid evidence we could possibly give you. And so stepping into TEDH now, and now CEDH should be inclusive, and that's a hard line we draw.
That's right. Because at the end of the day, you can't say that this is a fundamental part of this format or a fundamental part of these tournaments. That's not true. We can absolutely take action to make sure that this stuff is no longer welcome at our casual tables, at our tournaments. We can absolutely take real steps to ensure that this stuff is pushed out. We don't want toxicity in anything that we play. That's CEDH, tournaments, Magic, hobbies, go on and on and on. I don't want toxicity in any area of my life. And I'm not going to just accept that that's a part of it. And neither do you. You don't have to, as an audience member, as a listener, do not have to accept it either. And if you're on the fence and see these things, understand that you don't have to just be like, well, I don't want to try it because that's just such a part of it. No, it's not. And we can take steps to make sure that that doesn't spread any further.
And now that Ryan and I have acknowledged the vocal minority of people that are causing these issues, we would also like to highlight the vast majority of you that make tournaments amazing. I love tournaments. It is the place where I get to practice my best mechanics, best clean play. I've learned the most secrets about decks, interactions, how layer 7 works. When I had a Shia with Blood Moon out, that hurt my brain. Tournaments are the best place to level up. If you want to become a better player, if you want to excel in your favorite deck, go to a tournament. They're awesome. And not only that, hey, if you got the cojones and the skill, go win you some money. That is always a good feeling. The first time I brought home a portion of a prize pool from a top 16 split, whoa, did I feel good. Very, very fun. So again, we are calling out what we would like to say is this now minority of people that have caused issues that are bleeding into CEDH that we just didn't want to go unsung. We are not trying to damage the reputation of TEDH by speaking on this podcast. We would hate for the effect of what we're talking about now be, hey, stop damaging CEDH, start damaging TEDH. We are just attempting to acknowledge that TEDH needs help right now, and we've actually been taking some of its runoff.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's exactly right. And I love going to tournaments. They are so much fun. Absolutely. Now, and for those of you who just play kitchen table and say, that doesn't sound fun at all, that's fine. You don't have to go. That's okay. There's nothing that says that you can only have fun in a certain way. Just as I've always said in the past, that no one should tell you what way you should have fun. It was a thing that we battled for years from casual to competitive. And now we are, we're catching a little bit of that here. I have a great time at tournaments. I love playing in it. I love playing to the best of my ability. I love to see a new line or a new strategy. I love to see people bring fringe brews to see if it'll place or not. I love brewer's advantage. I love being able to talk to the table in a way that can get me to a win. I love all of those things about tournaments. Tournaments are wonderful. But unfortunately, the only time you ever hear about a tournament is whenever something's going wrong. Because
Yep.
128 person tournament was great. People got their prize pool and everyone went home. Doesn't make the front page.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
angle shooting person did this, or cheater was caught and this, and we have a problem. And it's like those negative things are what make the front page, the quote unquote front page. And it's time that we started to see the positive stuff. And if you've never done it and you're thinking about it, go do it. It is so much fun.
I think it's a really important point to make sure people understand. The coolest news we used to hear about TEDH was X Commander won and we didn't know could, and or Ian just won 3 time twisters within 2 weeks. That was insane.
That was great.
That was so cool. I think it was 2, maybe 2 or 3. It was nuts.
Yeah.
That used to be the coverage.
Yeah. 128 person tournament sold out in an hour. New max level tournament. Like we've hit seat caps of 256 and all this stuff. Those used to be the news.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, I think a really nice real world example are a lot of religious centers. There are plenty of different, organizations such as Christianity, anything like that, where you're not going to hear about the churches that went out and gave a bunch of charity to people. You're going to hear about the terrible ones that are doing horrible protests and harming people and doing awful things. You're not hearing about the good side in news. You're going to hear about the negative. And that's where we've gotten due to the scale of TDH. It's big now. It's no longer the yay underdog. We're hoping tournaments happen. They're happening whether we like it or not. Yep. And so people are going to only focus on the big negative news because that's the only thing that can make it to front page. No one's going to be excited about, did you guys hear about that 200 person CDH tournament that sold out? It's like, yeah, I'm sad I didn't get a ticket.
Yeah. Or like you said, Fringe Commander made top 16, went in 7-0 into the top 16. Yep. Like those types of things you don't hear anymore. And those are some of the things that make tournaments so great. Tournaments are fun. Tournaments are good. And the overwhelming majority of tournaments are good. It's just that the ones that have that seem to have the megaphone are these little niche instances. And now, and like we said, as we've kind of encapsulated it, it's all running into CEDH as well. And these are 2 distinct things.
Absolutely. And so we are advocating you as a community. Call out repeat offenders. Call out those within your communities that are causing issue. Call your judges. And judges, let yourself be called on. And when you're there, please enforce it. You are a savior. You are a solution. If we don't have you, we don't have tournaments.
And one last final thing. We appreciate all of you. This is not one person's fault, and there's no finger to point here. Yep. We appreciate everyone who has made tournaments happen. We appreciate everyone who has made CEDH happen. We love all of you as a community. And that is why we are so passionate about this. This is why we get so heated about these things, because we love tournaments and CEDH so much, and we want to see them continue to grow and thrive.
Correct. Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening today. We are so thankful to be able to have a platform to have this conversation, as well as those of you that are willing to follow in these steps and help us make the community a better place.
Agreed. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. We would love to hear all of your thoughts on these: constructive, good, bad, different. Please put them down in the comments below or reach out on all of our social media. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the podcast, and we will see you next time.